doing my job for me.
Hi.
Hi, Renoka.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I've been frustrated that it seems like everyone who is on the right that's coming here wants to move forward as in Trump is exonerated. And I feel like for a lot of voters, Trump was not exonerated in 2016 when the audio of him saying, I grab women by the pussy, right? Like when he said that, for a lot of people, that was immediately, this person is a predator. Yet, after all that, people still voted for him for 3 elections. I do think that considering the people he was running against, the Democrats aren't a real opposition to the Republican Party. That's a problem I have with the Democrats. And my counterclaim to it's the 2-tier justice.
Right.
I think this is a gender issue. I think this is about violence and sexual violence.
Yes.
And it's the fact that we're kind of, even in this conversation of elites, we're kind of treating it as in women in the working class or women of color aren't facing violence outside of the elite class, right? Women are facing violence constantly. And I think the problem also is that the burden of proof is always on the victims. And so my issue is that this is a problem with sexual violence and gendered violence.
Yeah.
And the fact that we keep trying to go around it, the fact that we want to have good men fight bad men, it's like we need to center female voices, survivor voices, to the conversation.
I think it's a very thoughtful point. And I actually would concede that it is not just a class issue of wealth and power. It is also a gender issue of sexual violence that can transcend class. And not everyone who was a survivor was in the working class. There was, though, a systematic effort to target people who were working class or who didn't have fathers, and an exploitiveness of people who are rich and powerful using their wealth to shield themselves from justice. But I think it is both a class issue and a gender issue.
Yeah.
And when I go in the airports and someone stops me, the biggest thing they'll say is they'll take 1 minute to tell me about their story of how they were sexually assaulted or sexually abused. And I am just shocked and saddened at how common and prevalent abuse and sexual assault is in this country, how we have sort of hidden it in a box, we've pushed it aside.
Right.
And one of the hopes that I have is this work can have a serious conversation about it. And the real heroes in this story are the survivors, that we have tried to make their voices front and center.
I fully agree with that. My problem is that when we frame this as a structure of getting justice, the Transparency Act is very important. I'm very happy that you and Congressman Massey kind of started the coalition with it. The issue is that we are seeing the transparency, the files are out there, there's egregious stuff being discussed, and there's still people wanting to kind of move the conversation away and have like partisan fights. And that aside, I think the problem is there's a 2% conviction rate of sexual violence predators. So it's like the Transparency Act almost feels like trauma porn because Pam Bondi or Donald Trump's Department of Justice doesn't even care about hiding the survivors' names, right? So we are kind of forcing them to relive the worst nightmare, the worst moments of their lives. And we're saying, you know what? The benefit of the doubt still falls on the person who's in the files, who knew who Epstein was, who still communicated with him after he was convicted. And we don't have to, try them. We're not going to have them go through justice. And I feel like that falls short for me.
Well,
because transparency is important. But if there's no justice or if there's no accountability that we're seeking at the end, that we're just trying to point blames of like who was with Epstein, we're not really getting the survivors
I couldn't
anything.
agree with you more, Renoka. And the survivors, of course, the survivors do believe that the release of the files was a huge thing because they've been fighting for that. But they call me, they text me, and they say, look, there are names in the files of people who raped me when I was 17. And why aren't we investigating them? Why aren't we prosecuting them? And I forward those names to Pam Bondi and the Deputy Attorney General. There needs to be justice. And if there's not justice in this administration, the next president needs to make this a priority because every person who actually engaged in the rape of these girls or who covered up for that rape needs to face accountability. And I totally agree with you. And it's what angers me the most is knowing some of the people in those files who are not facing prosecution. And by the way, they're facing prosecution in other countries, in Britain, in Norway, in France.
I mean, I will have to say, like, in
Okay,
Britain,
we have to pause there. You've been voted out by the majority.
Thank you. Thank you.